Hey everyone. Hey, real quick. I just want to check to see if you're a member of the coaches site, because if you're not and you're tuning into the show, well, you probably should be. There is no cost or commitment to sign up, and you're going to be connected to a community of over 35,000 coaches representing 54 countries and 25% of the hockey coaches globally. Click the link in the show description below to get started. We'll even throw in a 10-day free trial so you get full access to our suite of premium content featuring some of the top coaches in the game, including many who have appeared on the Glass Now podcast. If you love coaching, you're going to love the coaches site. And now, on to the show.
Big addition to campus. And I was looking at pictures of it, and the architecture here is, Justin, what's the name of the school in Harry Potter? Very Hogwarts type vibes here, and the arena, like the facade on the outside, just blends right in. I mean, it looks like it was built when the school was built. But beyond the facade, what are players expecting? What are fans expecting in the new rink open?
Yeah, well, part of the design was to make sure that it blended with campus, right? That's the theme of what we're trying to do with really all of the buildings that they've built in the last 10 years. So, but in terms of a fan experience, there's not a bad seat in the place. It was really designed for fans to have a great experience. And so the lower bowl is really geared towards your diehard fan, right? Those season ticket holders are going to come every night and really cheer on the team. And then we have a really kind of unique student section that's really steep, and we're able to put in about 800 students for each game. And then the third level is all suite level, suite and club. So that's kind of the high-end experience, if you will, for fans, and they can have dinner and a night out on the town and watch their Tommies hopefully win some games. So that's from a fan's perspective and student perspective. In terms of our student athletes, obviously state-of-the-art locker room, an ability to use the facilities to develop and continue to grow their skills with a shooting room. We have an amphitheater to do our pre-game meetings and pre-practice meetings. We have state-of-the-art training room with hot tub, cold tub, and all that stuff you need for rehab and
basically an NHL arena.
It's an NHL arena, right?
Yeah.
And all the details around it is really something that we took great pride in trying to design, and it's really come, when you walk into it, it really has come to fruition. The design pictures that we used 4 years ago and the way it looks live, it's amazing how they captured each rendering.
No kidding. So the state of Minnesota puts more players, boys and girls, in Division I hockey. So lots of players to recruit, in your own backyard. Also a lot of competition for those players. Beyond the new arena, which I'm sure is front and center in the pitch, but how else do you sell this program and help set it apart from some of the other schools, whether it be in the area or even in your conference?
Yeah, and we're, Minnesota hockey and the way we develop players at the youth level is a little bit unique from everybody else in the country, right? We track them through the high schools and stuff like that, and it's worked really, really well for a long, long time. And it's produced some really high-end players.
No kidding.
For us at St. Thomas, obviously the building is something that we're going to sell, but everybody has a building, right?
Fair enough.
So to me, it always comes down to your culture, your identity, who you are as a program, and how do we do business? How do we develop players, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well? So for me, it's always been a very holistic approach to their development, and making sure that we have really good relationships. I've been a big believer that when the relationships are good, then you have an opportunity to become the best version of yourself. And so sometimes we don't always agree on things, but we have that common ground that this is about our student athletes. It's about their development. It's about their growth. We're here to provide a service. My job as the head coach is to make sure that we have everything that we need at our disposal to allow our student athletes to achieve their goals. That's what we're all about, right? This is a development league still. Even though it might not seem like that anymore, it's still something where we feel our players are coming to us so that they could improve their skills, be in a high competition environment, and hopefully play at the next level. And that next level is going to be the NHL. And so, again, to me, that's what we sell in our program. We sell the people that we have, the relationships that we're going to build, the experience that you're going to have within those relationships and those games or those practices or whatever we do off the ice.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are going to make you a better player and a better person at the end of the day. The facilities and all the games and all that stuff that's kind of I won't say the sideshow, but that's the the fun part. The work is every day. The work is the things that people don't see behind the scenes.
Well, you mentioned the player-coach relationship, and I want to go back to your playing career in college. You played under George Gwozdecky, and he ended up recruiting you to come be an assistant coach when he moved on to Denver from Miami. Can you maybe, based on that, I would assume that you guys had a good relationship. Can you maybe speak to that relationship you had with him as a player, and maybe just how that experience as a student athlete informs how you approach your players today?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember back that long ago, but, we were, when Coach had taken over at Miami, he was taking over a program that wasn't very successful, and he had recruited our class. We were a big class. So he relied on us to try to help him get to where he wanted the program to go. Right? So I felt like right from day one, when he recruited us, that we were going to have a relationship. It was a reason why when he sat in our living room and my dad and my mom and my grandparents, my brother, everybody was there, we felt very comfortable in the fact that that's how I was brought up, right? In an Italian household, first generation. If you don't have a relationship, you're done. Right? So you gotta be loyal. You gotta have each other's back. Yes, you're gonna have arguments, but at the end of the day, we're family. And
we're sticking together.
We're sticking together. So we felt that from George right off the bat, and that just continued when I played for him. If I had questions, I'd go up to him. I wasn't afraid. I was a captain growing up and played for Stan Butler, who was a really good coach, and I was very lucky to have good mentors over the years. And so my relationship with Stan was always captain to coach, and we probably talked every night. He probably did most of the talking, and I listened, but I had that relationship, so I wanted that going forward. So I would go to Coach's office and ask him what his thoughts were, or maybe I would try to sell him on something, or a line mate or something like that, or maybe the guys would say, "Hey Rico, go talk to Coach. We feel like we need a little bit of a rest or something." So I was a spokesman. And that continued after I graduated. George had moved on to Denver. I was coaching in Toronto at the time, and he was recruiting one of our players. And we went to lunch, and he asked me what I was doing next year, and I said, I don't know. And next thing you know, I'm leaving Toronto again to go be a volunteer assistant with the University of Denver and learn to be a coach at this level. So I think the relationship that we had and the bond that we had built, he felt very comfortable in asking me, and I felt comfortable saying yes, which was really important. And then from there, I just learned everything from him, right? Everything that we do today at St. Thomas has a little bit of George Gwozdecky in it. And I'm sure he would tell you that he probably has a little bit of Badger Bob in him and Ron Mason in him. So the lineage kind of goes on for a few decades, but he's been a big reason why I'm here and why I became a head coach.
I want to go back to you being named the captain at Miami, and it occurred to me just getting ready for this conversation that I don't know how many NCAA captains, say this season, would be seniors who have played their entire collegiate career at one school. Just given the portal, I sense this is going to be a bit of a rarity. And I don't want to say that affects how somebody might lead, but I would suggest that if you're recruited to a program, especially in a circumstance where it's like, hey, we got to rebuild this thing together, that experience or that privilege of being handed the C as a senior, just maybe carries a little bit of extra weight, and probably that the type of responsibility that you hope all your players have in a locker room when you're building this program. Just being a young person at that stage of life, how do you think that experience shaped you? Because it seems clear that you did take a lot of ownership.
Well, just being front and center as a captain,
yeah,
to speak and having to be the spokesperson for your teammates and having to relay the message to the coaching staff, and then the message from the coaching staff back to the players, and making sure that you're not throwing anybody under the bus or anything like that, right? So to me, it shaped me to be the type of coach that I am, right? I think it's invaluable to go through that experience. And to give you an example, we have that right now. We have Lucas Wallen, who was recruited by us as a freshman, was our captain as a sophomore, now as a captain as a senior. And I see a lot of those qualities in him. Just the loyalty he has to his teammates, the ability to have a conversation, the ability to bring people together and to lead them and get them to do things that maybe they don't even know they can do. And so all those experiences that you go through as a captain, really kind of shape you for what's going to happen in your future life, I guess. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
But looking back, those were probably necessary steps for me.
No doubt.
To become a Division I assistant coach first, and then a head coach later on.
Well, when you're having lunch with George in Toronto, and you decide to make the move to Denver, like in your mind, you're like, this is my future, this is my career.
Again, I got to go back 30 years now, but I was thinking this is going to be something that coaching the junior team in Toronto. It's a different high. It's a different feel, right? You've been a coach, so it's when you see a player do something that you've asked them to do or have taught them to do or showed them video or something like that, and they do it and they have success. There's no better feeling.
No doubt.
Right? And so I was experiencing that as a young 22-year-old in Toronto as an assistant coach. And so I wanted to share and give back to the game. That was my mentality. I love college athletics. I loved my time at Miami, so I wanted to be in that environment. And then going to Denver and just learning the nuances of running a program and recruiting and all the things that go along with running a program. Well, that just fueled my fire. So I kind of didn't know what was going to happen, just because you're 22 and you don't know what you don't know.
For
right?
sure.
But I think Coach gave me an opportunity to really experience different aspects, so that when I did become a full-time assistant, I felt comfortable in all those areas, and I could grow and develop as we went along.
So, if I recall correctly, I think you did 2 years as a graduate assistant, 2 years as a full-time assistant, and then the Miami job opens up.
Yeah, one year as a volunteer, 3 as a full-time.
3 as a full-time, okay. But so the job at Miami opens up, and you were 27 years old. Like, did you go into that thinking I got a real shot at this, or was it just like it's my alma mater, I got to take a swing and see what happens?
Yeah, no chance, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we had just won the WCHA playoffs. We were recruiting some really high-end players at Denver. I basically went into coach's office and said, "Hey, should I be applying for this job?" He's like, "Yeah, it'd be a great experience. Go for it." So that's what I did, and I think I got a phone interview. And I remember going through the phone interview, and I was like, just some of the questions. I'm like, wow, I never really thought about that, right? I mean, I was 27, right? So I remember going back into George's office, coach's office, and saying, I just had the phone interview. He's like, how'd it go? I'm like, I think I bombed it. Yeah. But hey, I'm going to Toronto recruit, so we're good, whatever. So we just basically forgot about it, and we went on with our business. Things led to the fact that at the time Miami was, for whatever reason, the year before they had cut some programs, and there might have been some rumors out there that the hockey program was a little bit on the outs, and so some of the veteran coaches that were being asked to come and be the head coach were declining, and all of a sudden it's August and they still don't have a head coach. So now all of a sudden I'm in the mix with a bunch of assistant coaches, and I'm the only alum, and I still believe to this day, and he'll never tell me, but I think George had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
I think he had the AD's ear, and probably convinced them that I would eventually probably be okay, and that he would be on speed dial if I needed him, and he certainly was over the first few years. But it just kind of just happened.
Well, I mean, that's really complimentary, but just like, looking back at yourself at that stage of life, I mean, even with that type of endorsement, I mean, you would have to stand out. I mean, you're being handed a program that, I don't know, the school's investing several $1 million into it. How do you think you may have, either stood out or sold yourself at that point?
Well, again, I think just going back to what my mom and dad had taught me over the years, right? Just hard work and being respectful, and having the other thing was we had built the Miami program when I was a player, from really the worst team in the country as a freshman to winning a championship as a junior. So I had an understanding of how we built it as players. And then we went to Denver and we took over a program which was really talented. And we didn't have to rebuild it, but we had to kind of reinvent our culture at Denver. And we were able to do that. And obviously they went on to win some national championships when I left with the success that they had. So I had an experience as a player and then as a coach in two different areas of development. So I could sell that to Miami and get us back to where I thought we should be as a program. It didn't hurt that I knew some of the people in town and some of the people in the administration, and felt comfortable with them and asking them for help and things like that. So again, there's probably some comfort level. They probably felt like I would be loyal. I was 27, so I'm probably not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And they knew I would work hard. That was my, if anybody asked you about Rico as a player, they probably would tell you I worked hard, with a little bit of skill, and but he worked hard. So, again, I'm sure there was other things that went on, but I felt like if I could just convince them that I would be able to do a good job and had a good vision, that they would hire me.
So you get the gig. I'm sure you probably pop some champagne and celebrate a little bit. But once you're kind of officially handed the keys to an NCAA program, is there any sense of, I guess, like imposter syndrome, and just in terms of like building your staff and how you doing about it?
Well, first of all, I took the job, then I had to convince my fiance that we're moving to Oxford, Ohio from Denver.
Had she? Oh, did she? So, she wasn't a part of that stage.
Well, she was. We were engaged. We were going to get married in a year from that point. And so she knew we were going through the interview process, and I don't know if she even thought I was going to get it. So, and she loved Denver. She still loves Denver, but we had to convince her that, hey, we're going to move to Oxford, Ohio, and I'm going to take this head coaching thing on at 27. I have no idea what I'm doing. And but we're going to go through it. So she was really supportive, and so was my family, and so was George. And so here we go. We're fighting other assistants, and I inherited a couple of assistants that probably thought they wanted to be the head coach, and rightly so. Why wouldn't they? They're older than me.
Yeah.
They had been at it probably longer than me, and so we were dealing with that. We were dealing with coaches. I don't want to say negatively recruiting, but probably questioning recruits. Why are you going to play for a 27-year-old? He hasn't done anything. Does he even know what to tell you or what to do? So we went through the gamut.
Yeah.
We went through everything. That first year, we had players challenging us. We had other coaches challenging us. I probably went home at least once a week thinking, this is not for me, right? But we stuck with it. We went through it, and then we started to kind of slowly develop our identity. That second year, we had a great year. We finished second.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we felt like we were starting to come a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the third year, we got smacked right back down. And hey, you're not there yet.
Yeah.
You got a lot of work to do still. Your culture's not in a good place. Your identity is starting to take shape, but it's not good yet. And so, to me, the biggest turning point was we recruited a young man from Detroit, from Trenton, Michigan, by the name of Andy Green.
Oh, man, yeah.
When Andy Green said yes, it was like, oh my God, here we go. Because we felt we could build around him. And just the type of person that he was and his family that he came from and the way he played, he was going to demand everybody's best. And that was what we were trying to create. And, I felt like, and then all of a sudden we just started to kind of take off.
Talk to me about the Brotherhood.
Well, in the early, when George was at Miami, and he was probably ahead of his time, he had brought in a sports psychologist in 91, 92, I believe.
Yeah.
And we did this team building exercise where we had to come up with a slogan. And so we're all, 18 to 22-year-olds doing the sports psychology thing probably for the first time, right? And one of our teammates came up with, we came up with a slogan, fear no one, respect everyone, fear no one. And then somebody in the locker room said, and we should be a brotherhood. So that was what we had on the wall. And that was our crying call. That was what we used every day in practice. That was what we used in the weight room. Whenever somebody was struggling, it's brotherhood. When everybody, somebody was doing well, it's brotherhood. And it just stuck. We all graduated, moved on. So when I got back to Miami, I felt like we needed to bring back this brotherhood thing, this theme. But we really didn't know there was no meaning behind it, other than what we were defining it in those days. So I think it was year 5 of our tenure at Miami, I got the good fortune to meet a guy by the name of Don DePaulo, and I was telling him all about this stuff just like I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, and he was a leadership consultant and running his own business. He said, hey, I would really like to work with the team. I said, oh, well, that's great. If you want to do it for free, we don't have any money.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, absolutely. And so we started.
No kidding.
We started on this. First, he kind of did a 360 on me and trying to figure out what kind of coach I was going to be, or I was. And we slowly moved into the team, and then we used this brotherhood theme and defined it. And we really, we used a few things like accountability and team dynamics, daily behaviors, and tried to come up with this brotherhood definition. And we did. And it was a really important piece because it was something that we could recruit to, we could live by, as not only players but staff and everybody associated with the program. And it really gave us an opportunity to really hone in on our identity and culture. And it was really a roadmap for what we did. And it kind of worked because we went on a little bit of a tear.
You sure did.
And we were attracting players that wanted to be part of it and wanted to take pride in playing for it. And we had some success with it.
Well, I mean, I put on my sort of marketing and branding brain, and I was, man, I wanted to see the new rink here for a lot of reasons, but the number one reason is because I coached a kid that went to Miami, Curtis McKenzie. Terrific young man, not a young man anymore, but, and I remember I came down for a weekend, watched a game, but I got to go in the locker room, and I've been in lots of locker rooms, I'm sure you have too, and everybody's got slogans on the wall. But I remember like walking just down the hallway towards your locker room, and you start seeing the signage and the pictures and the Brotherhood, and then you go through the door. Like by the time you walked in to the actual locker room where the players got changed, like you just felt indoctrinated. Like you felt, and I was just like, this wasn't slogans on the wall. This was like it was crystal clear. Like if you were sitting in this room, exactly who you had to show up as or how you had to show up. And so I really wanted to see your locker room here because I'm like, I want to see how that gets replicated with a bit of a blank canvas. But you talk about the tear you went on. So I think it's a 2005. You have 6 seasons, a little bit up and down, finding your way. And then in 2005, 2006, I remember this coach in junior hockey. You guys get ranked the #1 team in the country. And that was a big deal. Like, I think it turned a lot of heads when that happened. And then you go on this remarkable 8-year run. I think the least amount of games you won was 23. But looking back at those first 6 years, what did you learn there that maybe informed, how you guys got rolling?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we learned in those first 6 years, and we did have some success. We went to the national tournament.
Did, yeah.
We were playing for championships. We just weren't there, though. Right?
I think you guys were in the mix every year.
Yeah, and we just couldn't get over the hump. And part of hiring Don, the leadership consultant, was to just really self-reflect on who I was as a coach and how our staff was interacting with our players, and were we doing everything that we could do to get the best out of our players? And I'm not saying it's the only thing, but that was a big deal because what I thought was, this brotherhood that we had, that we were having good relationships, what came out of the evaluation was maybe we weren't really doing what we said we were doing.
Interesting.
Once we started to do what we said we were doing, not just as a staff, but as a program, things started to click. Things started to go the other way. And so really what we learned was if you're going to say you're something, you better deliver on that, and you better be who you say you are. And you've got to put the work into it. And sometimes it's not going to be as easy as you want it to be. It's going to be hard. And it was. It wasn't just, I didn't know that stat, but I don't think I even thought about that. I was just thinking about what are we doing today to get to tomorrow? And how are we making our team better? And how am I helping our players become the best version of themselves? So once we started to really kind of dive into that, it really became a very simple day-to-day process. And we weren't worried about goals and outcomes. We were just worried about what are we doing on Tuesday? It's Tuesday today. Let's
have a great
Tuesday.
Just
have a great Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday became Wednesday, and then Wednesday became Thursday, and then all of a sudden we got to Friday, and Friday was awesome, and then Saturday was even better. And so it just snowballs. And the confidence you build from all the work and the preparation you put yourself through starts to build at a level where, I don't want to say coaching was easy, but it kind of was. We just let them do what they needed to do.
Well, it's Don.
Don, yeah.
So I'm curious about this. Just through our work, we've worked with a couple of folks that are, leadership or performance consultants, and specifically they work directly with coaches. And I sense that this is a I don't know if you want to call it an industry, but this is going to become normal that most coaches are going to have somebody. But this is, again, we're going back about 20 years ago. As a young coach, I can just see how easy it would be to feel like I got it figured out. I don't need somebody, especially that's a non-hockey coach telling me what to do. When did the light bulb maybe go on to say, hey, like me getting to know myself a little bit probably helps me be more effective at, helping my players?
So, when Don came along, I think I was 32 at the time, and we had just won National Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Felt pretty good.
I bet,
right?
Yeah.
Number 1 ranking, National Coach of the Year. 2 daughters, young kids, and I'm thinking, wow, life can't get any better than this, right? So I meet Don, like I said, and Don says, I'm going to do this evaluation. It's 360. We got to dive into you, right? I'm thinking, well, go ahead.
I just can't stop. I think as soon as he says 360, how many people would have just like backed out of their?
I don't even know what 360 means.
Yeah, totally.
So I have no clue what he's talking about. I'm like, whatever, you're not going to find anything. We just won National Coach of the Year, right? So he says, I'm like, all right, well, tell me about this 360. He's like, well, we're going to interview a couple of players. We'll do your AD. We like to talk to your wife.
No way.
Like, okay. I'm like, talk to your assistant coaches. We'll get a really good feel about Rico, the person. And so I'm thinking, whatever. Do whatever you got to do, right? It took him a month and a half to do all these interviews because he lived in Detroit, and a 4-hour drive. And he finally finishes. And we're about probably 2 weeks from him doing this Brotherhood thing with the team. And so he comes into my office, and I kid you not, like this binder was about that thick. And he drops it on my desk and he says, I'll see you in a couple hours.
No way.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute here. You're not going to tell me what's in it? I got to read it? So slowly I start flipping through it, and I start flipping through it, and I start flipping through it. And my mind kept going, who said what, right? Which coach said that about me? Was that my wife that said that about me? Now I'm thinking, I just went from feeling like...
You must have felt so vulnerable in that moment.
It was a feeling, and I still get goosebumps thinking about it, because 2 months earlier, I'm thinking, we got everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling like I got a lot to learn. And so it was a very humbling experience. And it was probably the first time in my coaching experience and coaching career that I became as vulnerable as I did. And to the point where and I'm not afraid to say this because everyone that knows me knows that I'm an emotional wreck, but there were tears. That's how impactful it was. Wow. And so the only thing I could do is go to work, get better. I tell my team to get better all the time, so I got to get better. And going back to what we talked about earlier, saying the things that you say, you have to deliver. You have to do it as well. You can't just tell guys that you're getting better. You got to get better. You got to look in the mirror. So we had a plan. We went to work on the plan, and slowly it got better. And there's still times today when I just did it this morning when I met with the team, and I told them I got to get better. I need their help. I need them to help me continue to get better. But this is what it's all about.
Well, I want to. I'll go back to my visit to Miami in a sec, but you touched on it a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being making a cup of coffee in the morning, and 10 being somebody cuts you off in traffic and steals your parking spot. How intense are you?
12.
I believe it. So the reason I ask is it's so funny when you think about kind of before the internet, but I remember when I coached in the BCHL, the coaches would come through and they'd drop off the media guides, and you'd put them out in your dressing room or your office or whatever. And so, you kind of pay attention to what's going on in college hockey, and you're like, oh, Miami, and it's shit, they're number 1. And I knew about this, Rico Blasi guy, but, hadn't connected that you were a young guy or who you were. And then I go down to watch a game, and I'm like, dude, who is this young man behind the bench who is just like, you can hear him all over the arena? Is that still you?
At times,
Yeah.
a little bit of a barker at times.
Yeah.
Probably a lot more mellower than I was in the early years. But I think it goes back to just being, I want our guys to know that I have their back. And I'm usually not barking at them. I'm barking at somebody else. But but I feel really strongly about our family and what we go through from day to day. And I want to make sure that they know I'm with them the entire way. So my intensity and my preparation and our staff's preparation has to be at a high level because that's what we expect from our players. And, so the intensity comes out when it needs to.
Well, I'll tell you what, I related to it a little bit personally, and I look at my company, the coaches site, like it's tough starting something from dust, and I think there's a lot of you can relate it to starting a program that frankly, I'm sure when you started at Miami, nobody gave you a shot, to do much, and all of a sudden 2009 you get the number one ranking, you're in the NCAA final, and part of that I think as a leader, sometimes the playbook is you have to will it into existence. Like you have to make it happen, and the way you make it happen is like people have to feed off your energy, and I can see at that time and that moment being a 12 out of 10 is maybe the playbook.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to. Again, I go back to just the way I was brought up, right? I'm very Roman Catholic, faithful, church. I listen, and to me, willing something means you've got to put the time in.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's some sacrifices that you have to make, right? For example, in coaching, your family takes a back seat sometimes.
Yeah, fair.
And so there was a lot of that too. And there was a lot of, I remember in some of the early years where people would say, well, Rico doesn't say hi to me. And I'm thinking, what? Of course I would say hi to you. But I think I was just so focused on getting our team and to a level where we were respected by everybody that I was just going 100 miles an hour and probably didn't say hi to you.
Yeah.
And that needed to change too, and that was something that we needed to work on. So, the intensity is still there. It's probably a lot more purposeful than it might have been. Because the other thing is, we were, as you said, we had to prove ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So you're
You
always
had a lot of underdog players too.
Yeah, we had guys with chips on their shoulder. Like we had to prove ourselves. So when you're proving yourself, you're doing what you got to do.
Totally.
And now there's not so much proving myself or proving what we know, as opposed to teaching what we know and mentoring and getting our guys to another level.
Well, I would say, I don't know if you've seen on Netflix, they've got the Any Given Saturday, it's the SEC doc, so they follow teams around it. And my takeaway from that, I think this is such a great lesson in coaching and as well as leadership, is that all these coaches are running these big programs. They're like entirely different human beings. Like you got to be you, right? You got to show up and be you. But we touch on 2009. You go to Washington. You go to the national championship. I can't imagine when you talk about what a high that is. And you get to the final game. You lose an OT to Boston University, and I mean, in a game that could have gone either way. I can imagine. Sometimes the coach is always supposed to have the right words, but it's emotional for the players. It's emotional for the coaches too, right? What's that self-talk like when you're walking to the locker room and you gotta talk to your boys and find peace, I guess, with that result.
Tough one.
Yeah.
You mentioned Curtis McKenzie.
Yeah.
So I had a little barbecue with him and some of his teammates and they have stories that
Because he's here in the offseason.
Yeah. They have stories I don't remember, right? I'm like, you guys are making this stuff up.
Sure they do, yeah.
Right? So I know for sure it didn't happen, but they think it happened. They're telling it so many times that they're actually believing it. So let's go back to after I shook hands with Jack Parker and the team, and I remember walking in the locker room, and you could have heard a pin drop. And obviously there were guys that were emotional. And I just remember saying to them that I was proud of them and that I loved them and that we're going to be just fine. And there was nothing else we could do. And I really kind of just sat there with them for a little bit. And nothing really needed to be said at that point. We went into the press room. I remember Tommy Wingles coming with me and Brian Kaufman, and they did such an unbelievable job with the press. And I was equally as proud of them in that moment as I was of them on the ice. And it just showed what kind of program that we had and the things that we were teaching them beyond hockey, which to me is everything.
I think what's really remarkable, I mean, we see it every year, especially in college sports where it's traditionally the playoffs are one and done, but getting to the final is one thing, but again, just going back to that consistency, and I thought this was interesting. When you came to St. Thomas your first year, you don't really hand out any scholarships when you guys go to D1, and you kind of pieced it together, and I was just, just in reading up on that, I'm like, that's chess, like that's playing the long game. What did you learn about your run at Miami from just building a program that's in the fight every single year, and how do you play, and how does that play itself out here?
Well, again, just the experience as a player at Miami, assistant coach at Denver, and then going and running the program at Miami, and going through all of those experiences, highs, lows, building the culture, the identity. We certainly wanted to. We have a pretty good blueprint. Yeah. And so the blueprint needed to maybe be tweaked a little bit because at St. Thomas we have different, you want to align yourself with the athletic department. And Dr. Eston and I are aligned very well in terms of our values and how we see things shaking out. But we also are very well aligned with the university. And so we just had to kind of tweak the blueprint a little bit. But all of those experiences certainly helped us in building our program to this point, which, by the way, we have a long way to go, but we've got a pretty good start. We have a culture code. We call it Faith and Brother. It's similar to the Brotherhood. It's not quite, because this team defined it. This team, this senior class that we have currently, we're a big part of them defining this Faith and Brother. And it's been a roadmap for them over the last few years, and we've consistently gotten better over time, and our culture is evolving over time, and our identity is slowly being solidified. And so now all of a sudden it's out there. Recruits understand when they come on visits, the first thing they're going to do is read up on this Faith and Brother. I'll give you a quick story. We were recruiting this young man this past year, and typically I'll sit down with him and I'll share with them the culture code and the document, and I'll say to them, just take a few minutes to read it. And this one young man, as soon as I said it, he's like, no. I'm like, no. Well, this guy isn't going to last. And I said, well, why won't you read it? He goes, well, your captain sent it to me 3 days ago.
No way.
And I'm like, oh, okay, let's move on. So it tells me and our staff that they've taken ownership for it, and they're the ones that are selling it. I don't have to sell it. I just have to make sure I hold them accountable to it. But they're doing that as well. And so that's a big piece of our build. The relationships, the environment that we are creating on and off the ice is really important. and just being there and just cultivating those relationships are all things we learned a long time ago and are still true today. Even in this crazy world that we live in, it is still important to have relationships. We are human beings. We were meant to have relationships with people. We're meant to be in community. And that has not changed. And we're doubling down on it, Aaron. I'm telling you right now, we are doubling down on the fact that in today's world, we need more relationships. We need more. We need more conversation. We need more interaction. When I hear our guys go to lunch and go to dinner together, it makes me the happiest guy in the world because I know they're living what we're talking.
Well, from an outsider's perspective, I look at your tenure here, and it's I don't know if you had a script, but it kind of looks like you might have, like every year you've taken a step, at least statistically and in the standings. Again, new rink. I sense that every player in that locker room is somebody you brought in. How do you take a step this year?
Well, again, I think it's just doubling down on our culture, our identity, and getting to the point where they're playing free. One of the things we continue.
What does that look like?
Well, one of the things we continue to talk about is this notion that you have to play out of fear, or athletes in general would get frustrated with things that don't go well. So we talk to our guys. We have to agree that the game of hockey is an imperfect game. Can we agree on that?
We can agree on that.
If we could agree on that.
Life's an imperfect game too.
Exactly. So there's no way that you should be getting frustrated because you made an ill-advised play or you made a mistake. Because we know the game's not perfect. So if we can agree on that, let's not worry about things that have happened in the past. Let's not worry about anything other than where our feet are right now. And let's play the game because you love to play the game and you're present. And I tell the team, being present is the beginning of love. And if you're here, you can love what you do. You can love the person that you're with, the relationships that you have, the experiences that you're going through. But if you're not present, none of that's going to matter and none of that's going to come to fruition. So to me, the way we get to another level is making sure that we are playing the game with confidence, with belief, and with no worry about making mistakes. Just go play. It's going to happen. And, easier for me to say. I don't have to go and do it. But I can be there to help them and remind them of what their job is, what their role is. I hate to say job because it's really not a job, right? We're playing a game that we love, and when it becomes a job, it's probably too
Rico,
late.
if I came to work on this campus every day, I wouldn't call it a job either.
So, I think I've told you on the phone, I always call my mom, and she's like, what do you do? I'm going to work. She said, you don't work. She's right. I don't work.
Well, so between your time in Miami and you coming here, you have a 2-year hiatus. You go to Providence and work in administration. Your perspective that you just described is, I think, really refreshing. How did that 2-year break from coaching make you a better coach? Maybe shape that perspective.
Yeah. Well, the first year, after 20 years of being a head coach and going through every experience that you can imagine.
Hope your handicap got better.
My handicap did get better.
That's good.
In fact, it went from an 18 to about a 12, which was not good if you're playing your buddies. But by the way, it's back to being an 18.
Is it? Yeah.
19. So that first year was really important for me. I really wanted to reconnect with my daughters, with my wife, with my family, who had taken a back seat to what we were doing. So that really gave me really good perspective because for the first time the second time I became very vulnerable in my coaching career, but the first time I actually got to see them in different ways, right? I was experiencing them, not just being there, but actually listening to them. and I loved it. I really loved that part of it, and just reminded me of why I did what I did and why I was doing what I was doing. I still loved to coach. I wanted to coach. I didn't know if I could again. I was on the cusp of being a little bit older now.
Yeah.
Even though I was the youngest guy at one time, and now I'm kind of on the old side. So didn't know if I would ever get an opportunity to coach again, to be honest with you. I did interviewed a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of hit some roadblocks along the way. But I wanted to learn more. And so what I did was I made all these trips on weekends. Not every weekend, because I still want to spend some time with my family. But I made certain trips. I wanted to go see different programs.
No way.
Spent some time with the University of Minnesota.
Like all hockey? Or
Yeah,
did you...
hockey. Bob Motzko. So spent time with them. Went to Notre Dame, spent time with Jeff Jackson. Watched games of Ohio State and Michigan, right? Just to see the environment. I would talk to our football coach at Miami. I wanted to know what he was thinking about this upcoming game or whatever. I was constantly watching. My kids would make fun of me because I had my laptop, the computer, the TV, and my phone. I had 4 games going on at the same time with a notebook, just writing.
And what are you watching?
I'm watching face-off plays. I'm watching breakouts. I'm watching tendencies. I'm listening to the commentator talk about what the coach said before the game. So I'm watching all these games at one time. My kids are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Don't bug me right now. I'm in the zone."
Yeah, no kidding.
Spent some time with Mike Sullivan with the Penguins, who was gracious enough to bring me in for camp, and then Boston, and Don Sweeney bringing me into Boston, and learning some of the pro things that went on, and the lingo and the communication part of it. So I was just a student that year, had no job, didn't know what I was going to do, but was learning along the way, and then spending time with my family. And then the Providence job opened up, and I remember Nate Lehman calling me. And now COVID hit, by the way. Let's not forget about COVID.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I was working on my golf game every day, and then COVID hit. Now all my buddies are working on their golf game too, and I'm thinking, this isn't fair. I should be getting better, not you.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had to deal with COVID. But I remember Nate calling me in June, saying that this associate AD job in charge of hockey would be opening up, and that he thought I'd be great at it. I said, "Nate, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about being an administrator. Doesn't sound good to me." He's like, "Just think about it." I'm like, "All right, I'll think about it, but I don't think so." And so I told my wife about it, and one of my good friends, and they're like, "You should go for it." And I'm like, "Nah, it's not right. It's not for me." So a month went by, 2 months go by. We're still in the middle of COVID. And then Nate calls again.
Yeah.
"Hey, you should really look at this job." Well, at this point now, it's been a year since I've worked, and my wife's looking at me like, "You need to get out of here.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
You need to do something."
Yeah.
So when Nate called that time, I'm like, "Well, I'd like to explore it a little bit more. Let's get into the weeds and see what this means, if I can do it." So that's when Bob Driscoll called the AD from Providence and basically convinced me that I would do a good job and that he would help me and mentor me in that aspect of athletics. So I just took a chance and packed my bags. My wife was going to stay back with the kids, and I was going to go to Providence and learn to be an administrator and help Nate and the men's hockey team, and help Matt Kelly and the women's hockey team, for whatever they needed. And so I did that.
So as you and thank you so much for sharing that. But as you share it, I can't help but think, I'm like, Bob Motzko, Jeff Jackson, Nate Lehman. These are people that, it would seem intuitive to be like, lock the door. We're not letting this guy in. Like, he's the competition. But, I mean, just going back to, the start of this conversation and talking about relationships, like how important are those relationships just in the game, and that, that sort of cordial competitiveness with the other coaches and people you're competing against.
I think that's the beauty of hockey.
Yeah.
We're very competitive, but we're also it's a very small group and very united. And so if somebody's down or not in a great place, then you try to help those guys. I mean, the amount of people that would call me, my colleagues, guys that I went to war with every night in recruiting and hockey and battles, guys like, and I'm talking about legends, Jack Parker, Dick Humilly, to this day calls me every week.
No kidding.
And Jeff Jackson, like you mentioned, and even Red Berenson, and just it was overwhelming for me, but it also made me think about, you need to do the same thing if something happens, because they paved the road for you. Yeah. You need to make sure that you do the same. So it was, again, it was humbling for me, but I learned a lot. And you can never underestimate the relationships that you've built over the years, and the respect that, and I go back to first generation Italian, mom and dad still don't speak a lick of English, worked hard all their lives so that we can have what we have today, but always taught us to be respectful and make sure that when you were with somebody, that they knew that you were listening and that you cared about that moment. And those are the things that always come back to me, and that I try to share with my daughters, I try to share with our team, that you never know that conversation could lead to something.
Yeah. I look at going back to Miami, so you talk about Andy Green, who I don't think it's too far in the future he's going to be running an NHL team. Riley Smith, the success that he's had, won a Stanley Cup. Alex Martinez, another Stanley Cup winner. You talk about those values, and I think there seems to be it seemed to be with those players, there was like some Miami DNA that they carried with them, like just in the way they played the game. You could see it on the ice just with the character, the grit, etc. Looking ahead here, but I sense it's, again, it's not going to be too far in the future that we see a former Tommie playing in the National Hockey League. When St. Thomas players graduate to the professional level, what do you hope their next coaches, their next GM say about them, or what should they expect?
Well, I would hope that they would say that they're ready, they're prepared, they're detailed, they're disciplined, they have a pro approach to how they prepare, they're reliable, coachable, and trustworthy. I think when you add all those things together, you got yourself a pretty good player that you can put on the ice and not have to worry about what he's going to do on that night that you're competing for a playoff spot. I guess, and how do you evaluate if players maybe have those characteristics or are going to fit into your program? I mean, I don't know how many living rooms or dinner tables you've sat around and on the recruiting trail, but it's probably a lot. Any tells that you've kind of identify that might signal that a player has that it factor, I guess? Yeah, I think so much of what we do now is I could open my computer up and watch all your shifts if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get the feel of who you are as a player until you go to a game and actually watch it. And you can tell when they're competing, how are they interacting with their teammates, how are they interacting with the coach. I like to stand or sit opposite the bench. when I watch a game. When I'm talking to you, are you engaging? It's really interesting when we bring them to campus and I walk with them. I walk with them and their parents, and I listen because I let one of our assistants do the tour, but then I'm talking and asking questions. And are they, respectful to mom and dad? Are they, all those things you just kind of get a pretty good feel about if you want them on your program or not, and if you could trust them. So those are little things, and listen, it's hard. It's hard because you make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and you hope not. You hope you don't make too many of them, and you hope that you can help these guys become the best version of themselves.
I want to go back to your comment about playing free, and it's so, I think, natural for coaches, especially like say in practice, right? Like you want the routes to be perfect. You want it to look exactly like you drew it up. But how does playing free come to life in practice so that it comes to life in a game?
Yeah, and I think that's really a really good question, because if you're the type of coach that has to blow everything down all the time and you preach that on the front end, well, then you're not letting them play free. So you have to design your drills in practice and whatever it is, where they can go and explore. They can be who they are. And if they make mistakes, let them troubleshoot. Let them figure it out. The game is too quick, right? We can't be blowing the whistle all the time. If you've given them good indicators, if you've taught the game the right way or the way you want to play, now you got to let them play. And you got to give them an opportunity to troubleshoot. I think coaches get in trouble, because this is the coach's site. I think coaches get in trouble when they see something, they want it to be perfect, but we've already agreed that's an imperfect game. They want it to be perfect, and the whistle goes. And I want you to do it this way. And then if I was a player, I would say, but coach, it wasn't that way. The puck wasn't there. And the puck's not always going to be there. And the guy's not always going to be there. Oh, and by the way, there's another guy in the way. So how are you going to troubleshoot? So to me, it's always about letting them just play and don't stop it. You can always stop it later. We videotape all our practices. We can teach through video. You don't have to blow the whistle every time. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't blow the whistle. There's times you have to do it.
Sure.
But to me, it's doing it on a day-to-day perspective so that when they go into the games, if something were to happen, they've probably already seen it in practice, and they've been able to troubleshoot. That's the magic. That's the magic. If you can put them in uncomfortable situations where they have to troubleshoot and have to go through different experiences, and you don't even have to change the drill. You just add a puck or add a second effort or add a third effort, and now all of a sudden the drill is totally different.
Hold on, what's second or third effort? Can you just describe it for anybody that's...
Maybe you're doing a drill, a neutral zone drill, and all of a sudden you blow the whistle and you throw a puck somewhere else, and they got to go and react to it.
Just react to the puck.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a different drill. It's a different situation.
Play hockey.
To me, if they're doing that during the week, then when Friday and Saturday come, in college it's Friday, Saturday. In the NHL, it's every other night or every night. The guys are able to play. And they know, they've seen it before. They've felt it before. It might not be exactly the same, but they can troubleshoot. And that's the key of the game. That's the key of becoming an elite performer to not being an elite performer.
It's funny, like totally off topic, but I think somewhat relatable. There's not to go back, not to suggest that like I just like binge on Netflix all the time, but there's a great documentary, and it's how they caught Osama bin Laden. And it gets to the final part of the series, and they talk about, okay, we think we know where he is, and we've got a call in SEAL Team 6. And so they bring in one of the SEALs to talk, and they talk about, they're like, it's like we have no idea what's happening, and we get told, hey, in 2 weeks you're getting on a plane, and you're going over to take care of business. And they had this process. So to your point, they didn't say, hey, here's the exact mission. They said, so they had every night they would recreate what they thought the bunker, and they throw different things, like now there's a dog, now there's this, and they just talked about that training environment, that the worst thing they could have done for them would have been to tell them exactly what it was going to be. They had to prepare them for everything or for something that was totally unforeseen. You know, as you, when we go into practice, and if I came to your practice, what would be, say, the drill where your players would get juiced up, like we'd hear it?
You need to come to a Tuesday practice.
Tuesday, what happens on Tuesday?
Tuesday's battle day. Tuesday is the day where we become closer as a team.
Yeah.
And better, because the compete level is
iron
through the roof. And the guys know it.
Yeah.
You know, the chin straps are done up, and here we go. And there's no hiding. And to me, that's, you know, this isn't, we're not reinventing the wheel here. At the end of the day, it's who wants it more. And putting them in those situations, it brings out the best in all of us. And I get most excited on Tuesday. The guys know that, and they get equally as excited, and they get after it. And I can tell you, after practice, it's one of those times where, and you know, having played the game, where you sit in your locker and you're like, today I accomplished something. And you feel like, I got better today.
As you've gone along this journey, Rico, you know, I'll ask you this. I'll ask two parts. I mean, you've mentioned so many, I think, really successful and notable coaches that, you know, have been a part of your journey. Anybody that, you know, from a mentorship perspective that you would shout out that's been really important?
Well, I'd have to say George has always been my mentor, because I learned the trade from him. So to me, Coach is, you know, at the top of the list. But I've been so lucky to be around other great coaches and picking their brains and using them, if you will, from the Mike Sullivans of the world to Stan Butler, who I played growing up in Canada, to Jeff Jackson, to I didn't even know Badger Bob, but I know I have a little bit of Badger Bob.
Yeah.
Just because George played for Badger Bob.
No way, yeah.
I didn't play for Ron Mason, but I know we have a little bit of Ron Mason because George worked for Ron Mason. So, you know, all these guys, Jerry York, Jack Parker, I mentioned Dick Humilly, Nate Lehman, Bob Motzko. I mean, I've just been so lucky to be around so many really good hockey people, and I've always been one of those guys that takes a lot on, and somewhat of a sponge. And I pride myself on my memory, I guess, and trying to remember everything that I've gone through and learned over the years. And you know, we, as a coach, you're always taking something from somebody.
Yeah.
And then the best advice I ever got from George when I got the job at Miami was go and be yourself. Take all the experiences, all the lessons you've learned, and will continue to learn, but be yourself. So I try to be myself, but I remember all those things that, you know, coaches have said to me, or experiences that they've gone through. Because I would ask Red Berenson, how did you get your program to, you know, go to 27 national tournaments? Like, say, Rico, we got to do this, we got to do that. So I remember all that stuff, right? And he's probably thinking, why is he asking me that? I just want to have a drink, and you know, we're at the coaches convention in Florida, and it's sunny, and I'm having a, you know, cocktail, and you're asking me about NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
What do you want, kid? You know. Yeah. But he was always the guy that would sit with you and tell you all about it. Recruiting, people, systems. Doesn't mean anything if you don't have a team that believes in what you're doing. So, again, I just been lucky to be around really good people that are willing to share. Yeah.
Well, and outside, and I mean, the reason we're here, you're going to be sharing at our upcoming event with the Minnesota Wild, but outside of people, any books, resources, anything else that you would recommend that have been helpful.
Yeah, let's go back to Don. Don would drop off Lencioni, leadership books on my desk all the time, and I remember him quoting "Good to Great." The John Gordon books. There's always something out there that's inspiring, that you can take and then use to get your message across. The best motivation, the best book I use are the daily readings. I try to go to Mass every day, and there's always an inspiration. There's always something. And I love being here at St. Thomas, because when I go chapel at noon, you're getting a different type of homily.
Yeah.
Because they're professors too, and so they dive into kind of the root of the message.
Yeah. And
I love that, because I take it back to the team and use it within whatever we're doing. So it's there's lots of things that we use to inspire the message and deliver the message.
Well, I sense it's starting to sink in. There's a lot of excitement here on campus, and again, it seems like for all the work that's been put in here in the early part of your this program going to Division I, it seems like it's starting to reach the peak, so to speak. But thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Blake.